Time to dive into this pile of fascinating stuff you sent me. All about how to think like Socrates. Talk about a timely subject.
Yeah.
Seems like every time I turn around these days, there's another article or post about AI,
Yeah.
information overload,
Yeah.
how to, make sense of it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're turning to a philosopher from like 5th century BC Athens for guidance.
What's fascinating to me is that, it's this ancient wisdom butting up against the modern digital age.
Exactly. We're talking about like Socrates,
Right.
like the OG philosopher. And I love that your sources don't just like rehash the usual stuff about the Socratic method.
Right.
You know, there's this emphasis on how his ideas are almost like an ancient blueprint for self-improvement,
Yeah.
which I think is super relevant to all of us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Socrates wasn't,
Yeah.
sitting in an ivory tower pondering abstract theories. He was out in the Athenian marketplace engaging with like everyday people about how to live a good life. And that focus on ethics, on making choices that lead to flourishing, is something that still resonates with us.
Totally. Okay, so before we get to the how-to part,
Yeah.
let's like quickly set the scene.
Okay.
We're talking about Athens in the 5th century BC, a time of just incredible intellectual ferment.
Yeah.
It's like the Silicon Valley of ancient Greece, right?
Absolutely.
Full of new ideas and constant debate.
Full of new ideas and, constant debate.
And into this bustling scene walks Socrates, this like enigmatic figure who challenged conventional wisdom and made people question everything they thought they knew.
That's right.
Ooh, I'm already intrigued. But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
We know about Socrates mainly through the writings of his students, like Plato.
Right.
So it's almost like a philosophical game of telephone.
That's the famous Socratic problem that scholars grapple with.
Right.
How much of what we read is accurate history versus Plato's own interpretation. It's a fascinating puzzle. But even if the details are fuzzy,
Right.
the impact of Socratic thought is undeniable.
Totally. And speaking of impact,
Yeah.
we can't ignore how Socrates' life ended.
Yeah.
He was put on trial and executed in 399 BC
Right.
for corrupting the youth and impiety. That's intense.
It wasn't just some random historical footnote.
Right.
It tells us how radical Socrates' ideas were.
Yeah.
He was encouraging people to question authority, to think critically, and that was seen as a direct threat to the established order.
Oh, wow.
It's a stark reminder that new ideas, even those focused on self-improvement, can be met with resistance.
So basically, Socrates was willing to die for his beliefs,
Yeah.
which were all about making people think more deeply. That's heavy stuff. But it also sets the stage for his whole method, right? Which is all about challenging assumptions.
It's the cornerstone of the Socratic method.
Right.
This isn't about blindly accepting what you're told. It's about actively engaging with ideas, dissecting them, and seeing if they hold up under scrutiny.
Okay, enough history for now.
All right.
Let's get practical.
Yeah.
What exactly does this famous Socratic method look like?
Yeah.
I have to admit, it sounds a bit intimidating. Like, do I need a toga in a marketplace to do this?
Well, the good news is you can skip the toga.
Huh?
The essence of the Socratic method is deceptively simple.
Okay.
It's about asking the right questions.
Okay.
But here's the key.
Right.
It's not about having all the answers.
Right.
It's about acknowledging what you don't know and using questions to get closer to the truth.
So it's less about being a know-it-all and more about embracing a kind of I know that I know nothing mindset.
Right.
But how does that actually work in practice?
Think of it like a mental workout.
Okay.
Instead of lifting weights, you're lifting ideas, examining them from different angles, testing their strength.
Right.
And there are 3 key moves in this mental workout.
Okay.
First, as we've said, is questioning assumptions. Never take anything for granted.
Okay, so no sacred cows.
Right.
But I'm guessing it goes deeper than just asking why about everything.
Right. It's about digging deeper, uncovering the hidden assumptions behind those why questions.
Okay.
For example, imagine you're feeling anxious about a presentation at work. You might think, I'm going to mess this up.
Right.
A Socratic approach would be to ask, what evidence do I have that I'll mess up?
Okay.
What's the worst that could happen? Have I successfully given presentations in the past?
So instead of getting stuck in that initial thought of like, I'm going to mess this up, you're actively challenging it.
Yeah.
Looking for evidence. And maybe even realizing it's not as catastrophic as it feels.
Right.
I like where this is going. What's the next move in this mental workout?
The second move is self-reflection. This is where you turn that questioning inward. What are your own beliefs and values? Why do you hold them? Are they based on like solid reasoning?
Right.
Or just things you've inherited from others?
Okay, so it's like holding up a mirror to your own mind. But isn't that kind of exhausting? Do we really have to question, like, every thought we have?
Not every single thought, but it's important to like regularly examine those beliefs that are driving your actions and shaping your reality.
Sure.
For example, let's say you're feeling stuck in your career.
Okay.
You might have a belief like, I'm not creative enough to start my own business.
Right.
A Socratic approach would be to ask yourself, what experiences have I had that might contradict this belief?
Right.
What are some small steps I could take to test this belief? What are some like alternative career paths that might align with my strengths?
So instead of just feeling defeated by that limiting belief, you're actively challenging it.
Yeah.
Looking for evidence that might prove it wrong.
Right.
And exploring alternative paths.
Right.
That's pretty empowering. It's like you're taking back control of your own narrative.
That's right.
But I'm guessing this self-reflection stuff can get uncomfortable, right?
Absolutely. It's not always easy to confront those deeply held beliefs that might be holding us back.
Right.
And that's where the third move comes in. Intellectual humility. Socrates famously said, I know that I know nothing.
Ah, yes, the classic, I know that I know nothing.
Right. But isn't that a bit paradoxical? If you know that you know nothing,
right,
doesn't that mean you actually know something?
It is a paradox,
right,
but it's a brilliant one.
Okay.
It's not about claiming actual ignorance. It's about recognizing the limits of our knowledge and being open to learning from others. Even when we're experts in our field, there's always more to learn,
right,
more nuances to discover,
right.
And that's actually pretty exciting.
It reminds me of that saying, the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. So it's not about feeling stupid, but about being open to new information and different perspectives.
Exactly.
Okay, this whole mental workout analogy is really clicking for me.
But I have to ask the classic question. How is this 2,500-year-old stuff relevant today?
Right.
Like, sure, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But is it really practical for someone navigating the modern world?
That's where it gets really interesting. Remember that article you shared about Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, CBT?
Yeah.
It's one of the most widely used therapies today, and it borrows heavily from Socratic techniques.
Yeah, really? So ancient philosophy is helping people with, like, modern-day problems.
Yeah.
I'm all ears. Tell me more.
CBT therapists use Socratic questioning to help patients identify and challenge those negative thought patterns that can lead to like anxiety and depression. It's about using reason to examine those thoughts, test their validity, and ultimately reframe them in a more helpful and realistic way.
So instead of just accepting those negative thoughts, like, I'm a failure or I'll never be good enough, you're using Socratic questioning to dig deeper. And expose those thoughts for what they often are.
Right.
Just thoughts, not necessarily truths.
Exactly. It's a powerful tool for taking back control of your mind,
right,
your emotional well-being. And the beauty of this questioning mindset is that it's not just for therapy. It's incredibly useful in so many areas of life.
Right.
Education, relationships, decision-making, even creativity and problem-solving.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to, well, a lot of things. I'm starting to see how this could be really useful in my own life, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed by decisions or stuck in like a negative thought spiral. It's like instead of searching for quick fixes or easy answers, we should be focusing on asking better questions.
Precisely. That's the Socratic twist on self-improvement. True growth comes from challenging ourselves, owning our ignorance, and being open to new perspectives. It's not always comfortable, but it's incredibly rewarding.
It makes you wonder how different our world might be if everyone embraced this kind of intellectual humility.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get too philosophical, let's bring this back to the material you sent.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about Socrates and his method, but the articles also mention Stoicism. What's the connection there?
The Stoics, like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, were huge admirers of Socrates. They saw him as a model of virtue and rationality. And while Stoicism developed its own unique set of principles, it owes a big debt to Socrates' emphasis on living a life guided by reason and ethics.
So they were like Socrates' philosophical heirs,
Mm-hmm.
taking his ideas and expanding on them.
Yeah.
But how do they apply these ideas to everyday life?
Right.
Because Stoicism seems to be having a bit of a resurgence these days.
Mm.
What's all the buzz about?
Well, the Stoics believed that true happiness and fulfillment come not from external circumstances,
Okay.
but from our own internal state of mind. They emphasize the importance of accepting what we can't control,
Right.
focusing on what we can,
Mm-hmm.
and living in accordance with nature and reason.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Huh.
But it sounds like they were all about taking responsibility
Yeah.
for our own thoughts and actions,
Mm-hmm.
which seems pretty relevant in today's world, where it's easy to feel like we're at the mercy of external forces.
Mm-hmm.
But something tells me this is where the AI conversation comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if Stoicism is about mastering our own minds, doesn't AI pose a unique challenge to that?
That's a really insightful connection. On the one hand, you have Stoicism, which emphasizes, self-control, reason, and inner peace.
Right.
And on the other, you have AI, which is rapidly changing the world around us in ways we're only beginning to understand.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. But how exactly does AI challenge this Stoic ideal of mastering our own minds?
Mm.
Is it because AI is starting to make decisions for us?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something deeper?
It's both the decisions and something much deeper. Think about all the ways we rely on algorithms these days.
Right.
What news we see, what products we buy, even who we date. It's easy to slip into a kind of passive mode where we're just letting the algorithms decide for us.
Right.
And that can be dangerous because it undermines our ability to think critically
Right.
and make choices based on our own values.
So it's like we're outsourcing our decision-making
Mm-hmm.
to these algorithms, which might be efficient,
Right.
but it also makes us less engaged,
Yeah.
less in control of our own lives.
Yeah.
It's a bit unnerving when you think about it.
Exactly. And this is where Socrates and the Stoics offer a powerful antidote. Remember all that talk about questioning assumptions, examining our beliefs, and embracing intellectual humility?
Right.
Those are the very skills we need to navigate the age of AI.
So instead of just blindly trusting the algorithm,
Mm-hmm.
we need to be asking, who created this algorithm?
Mm-hmm.
What are its biases? Is it actually serving my best interests?
Right.
It sounds like a call for a digital version of the Socratic Method.
Precisely. And this is a point Donald Robertson makes in his book, How to Think Like a Socrates. He argues that AI could lead to a superficial understanding of complex ideas. We might start accepting prepackaged wisdom from algorithms without really grappling with the underlying principles.
But isn't AI just using logic and data?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of Socratic in a way?
Right.
I mean, Socrates is all about reason and clear thinking.
That's a great point, and it gets to the heart of the matter.
Mm.
The difference is that Socrates wasn't just interested in finding the right answer. He was interested in the process of inquiry, the back and forth of dialogue, the
Sure.
willingness to be wrong and change your mind. That's where true understanding emerges, and that's what's at risk in a world dominated by algorithms.
Okay, so we're not saying AI is inherently bad,
Right.
but we need to be mindful of how we use it right. We need to make sure we're not letting it do our thinking for us. We need to keep flexing those Socratic muscles.
Exactly. And it's not just about AI. It's about any source of information, whether it's a news article,
Right.
a social media post, or even a conversation with a friend. We need to bring that same critical questioning mindset to everything we encounter.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on learning, critical thinking, and even how to navigate the digital age. It's like we've taken this ancient wisdom and applied it to the challenges of today's world.
That's right.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
It's been great talking with you, too.
And remember, the journey doesn't end here. The real work begins now as we take these principles and apply them to our daily lives.
I completely agree with you.
You're absolutely right. This is just the beginning of our Socratic journey. And who knows, maybe by embracing this spirit of inquiry, this willingness to question and learn, we can all contribute to making the world a little bit wiser, a little bit more thoughtful, and maybe even a little bit more just...
I think Socrates would certainly approve of that aspiration.
And on that inspiring note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the mind of Socrates.
Okay.
Huge thank you to our brilliant expert for guiding us through this philosophical landscape. And to you, our listeners, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep the spirit of Socrates alive. Until next time, happy thinking.